You picked the wrong black woman to harass today. General Margaret Reynolds' voice remains steady as Officer Ryan Clark twists her arm behind her back. Metal cuffs snap around her wrist. Too tight, drawing blood, talking back to an officer. Captain James Mitchell looms over her. That is how people like you end up with problems. Reynolds memorizes his badge number, his name tag, the mole above his left eyebrow. Check her for weapons. Mitchell commands. Clark jabs her ribs during the search. Finds her wallet, keys, phone. He tosses them into an evidence bag. Something funny, Mitchell demands when he notices her calm expression. Reynolds says nothing. They missed the military rock communicator hidden in her jacket lining. Get her in the car! Mitchell barks a knight in holding. Should fix that attitude, they shove her head down, forcing her into the cruiser. They have no idea who they have just arrested. Fluorescent lights buzz overhead. The processing room smells of sweat and cleaning chemicals. Reynolds stands perfectly still for her mugshot. The camera clicks name. The booking officer does not look up from his computer. Margaret Reynolds' address. She provides her Cedar Lane address. The officer pauses, eyes narrowing. That is in Oak Ridge Heights. His tone changes, recognizing the predominantly black neighborhood. Reynolds presses her thumb against the fingerprint scanner. Black ink stains her skin behind her officers. Mitchell and Clark laugh by the water cooler. Another one from that neighborhood? Thinking she is special, Clark says, voice carrying deliberately, acting like the checkpoint does not apply to her. Had to put her in her place, Mitchell replies. These people need to learn. Reynolds memorizes every word, every inflection, every face watching her. Processing phone call, she asked the booking officer. He points to the wall phone. One call, make it count. Reynolds dials a number from memory. Not her lawyer, not family. Operation Center, Pentagon. Answers a crisp voice authorization code. Tango Delta 863. Reynolds speaks clearly, initiating protocol oversight. Delta location, transmitting. A moment of silence, confirmed General Reynolds. Response team deploying. Reynolds hangs up as Councilman Robert Hayes storms into the station. His expensive suit and championship ring gleam under the harsh lights. Another troublemaker, Hayes demands, looking through the glass at Reynolds. Mitchell nods, just processing her. Now, sir. Good, Hayes says. These checkpoint resistors need consequences. The program is too important. Reynolds is escorted to a holding cell. The door clangs shut. She sits on the metal bench, back straight, face composed. The clock on the wall reads 9:17 p.m. 2 hours earlier, sunset paints the sky orange over Oak Ridge Heights, General. Margaret Reynolds drives her modest sedan through familiar streets. The neighborhood transitions from predominantly black to the wealthier, whiter suburbs of Riverview. Blue lights flash ahead. Police cruisers block the road, a checkpoint. Reynolds slows windows. Already rolling down, she has done nothing wrong. This should take seconds. Officer Ryan Clark approaches, flashlight beams sweeping across her face, license and registration. Reynolds reaches slowly for her glove compartment. May I ask what this checkpoint is for? Officer Clark? Stiffens. Just routine ID. Now she hands over her driver's license. Clark studies it. Flashlight lingering on her address. Oak Ridge Heights resident. He says into his radio. Requesting additional verification. Reynolds notices his emphasis on her. Neighborhood, is there a problem with my identification, officer? Wait here. Clark walks back to the cruiser. License in hand. Reynolds watches through her rear-view mirror. Clark shows her license to another officer. They both look at her car, laughing. Captain James. Mitchell emerges from the command vehicle. Clark points at Reynolds's car. Mitchell nods, approaching with deliberate slowness. "Step out of the vehicle, ma'am." His tone carries no respect with the formality. "May I ask why my license is valid? Step out now." Mitchell's hand rests on his holster. "We are implementing enhanced search protocol. Reynolds knows her rights." Enhanced search requires reasonable suspicion of criminal activity. "What is your suspicion?" "Captain." Mitchell's face hardens. Out of the car, Reynolds complies, movements deliberate. "I would like to note that this appears to be selective enforcement." "We decide what is selective." Mitchell says, hands on the hood. "I decline consent to search my vehicle without probable cause." Reynolds states calmly. Terry v. Ohio and Delaware v. Prowse establish clear guidelines for. Look at the lawyer here. Clark mocks, moving closer, thinks she knows the law. Reynolds stands her ground. "I am familiar with my Fourth Amendment rights." Mitchell steps closer. "Your kind always want to make things difficult, my kind." Reynolds raises an eyebrow. "Troublemakers?" Mitchell clarifies, but his meaning hangs transparent in the air. Other drivers watch from their cars. Some record with phones. Mitchell notices, gesturing to another officer. "Clear these vehicles through, no recordings," Reynolds observes. Officer Davis approaching cars, making people put phones away. She commits each face to memory, each badge number, each license plate. "Last chance," Mitchell says. "Consent to search or face obstruction charges." "I respectfully decline and request a supervisor." Reynolds says, her voice remains steady. "Professional." "I am the supervisor." Mitchell signals to Clark. "Detain her." Clark grabs Reynolds' arm, twisting it behind her back. The pain shoots through her shoulder. "Stop resisting, Ryan," Clark shouts, though she is not resisting. "I am not resisting," Reynolds says, clearly aware of creating an audio record. "I am complying under protest." Mitchell steps closer. "You do not tell us how to do our jobs." Reynolds notices Clark's body camera. "The red recording light blinks off your body camera. Appears to be malfunctioning." "Officer Clark," she notes. "Mind your own business." Clark tightens his grip. Reynolds's military training kicks in. She could disable both officers in seconds, but that is not why she is here. Not tonight's mission. "I will be filing a formal complaint," she says instead. Mitchell laughs. "Good luck with that." "Councilman Robert Hayes personally oversees checkpoint operations. Your complaint goes straight to his trash can." Reynolds's watch presses against her wrist. The Militaria device captures every word, every admission. Evidence gathering continues. "Search the car." Mitchell orders another officer. "Sir, without a warrant." Reynolds begins. "We have checkpoint authority under City Ordinance 27-9. Mitchell interrupts, signed by the council. "Last month." Reynolds knows the ordinance, knows its constitutional flaws, knows exactly who pushed it through. "Find anything." Mitchell calls to the officer, searching her car. "Clean, sir." Mitchell seems disappointed. "Check under the seats." These Oak Ridge Heights people always hiding something? Reynolds's fingers discreetly press a button on her watch. The GPS tracker activates Pentagon systems now. Monitor her location in real time. "Nothing, sir," the officer reports. Mitchell turns back to Reynolds. "Well, you are still interfering with a lawful checkpoint. That is obstruction. Citing constitutional protections is not obstruction," Reynolds counters. "And now arguing with an officer." Mitchell nods to Clark. "Cuff her." The metal cuffs bite into her wrists. Clark secures them too tight, deliberately. "Margaret Reynolds, you are under arrest for obstruction of justice and resisting a lawful checkpoint inspection." Mitchell recites satisfaction in his voice. Reynolds notices a young woman in a nearby car recording discreetly. Their eyes meet briefly. Reynolds gives an imperceptible nod. "You have the right to remain silent." Mitchell continues. "I am aware of my Miranda rights." Captain Reynolds interrupts. "I assume you are transporting me to the Riverview station." Mitchell pauses, thrown by her composure. "That is right. I will need my phone call when we arrive. You will get what we decide to give you," Clark says, shoving her toward the cruiser as they lead her away. Reynolds glances at the checkpoint. Officer Davis turns away. Another Oak Ridge Heights resident for additional screening. 3 cars with white drivers passed through without stopping. Pattern, established evidence, accumulating. Clark pushes her head down, forcing her into the back seat. Officer Clark badge, no. 4-7-2, that use of force is unnecessary and excessive. Reynolds states, for her watch is recording. "Shut up," Clark snaps, slamming the door through the window. Reynolds watches Mitchell speaking with another officer. He gestures toward Oak Ridge. Heights laughs. The cruiser pulls away from the checkpoint. Reynolds sits calmly in the back, mentally reviewing the Pentagon protocol. She has just activated. The situation is proceeding exactly as anticipated. The interrogation room at Riverview Station smells of stale coffee and floor cleaner. A single overhead light casts harsh shadows. The metal table is bolted to the floor. Reynolds sits straight back in the uncomfortable chair. Her handcuffs remain tight. The door opens. Captain James Mitchell enters, carrying a thin folder and Reynolds's confiscated belongings. He drops them on the table, comfortable. His smile does not reach his eyes. Reynolds does not respond. The less she says, the more they reveal. Mitchell opens the folder. Margaret Reynolds, Oak Ridge. Heights address no priors. He looks up. First time being educated about checkpoint compliance. I would like to speak with an attorney soon enough. Mitchell circles the table. We are just having a conversation. First, I invoke my right to counsel. Reynolds's voice remains level, precise. Mitchell ignores her. See, we have a problem in this town. People who do not respect authority. People who think rules do not apply to them. He leans against the wall, studying her checkpoints. Keep Riverview safe. Some folks do not like being checked. Those folks usually have something to hide. Reynolds remained silent. Her military training included resistance to interrogation techniques. Mitchell's amateur intimidation tactics would not break a first-year cadet. Nothing to say. Mitchell flips through her wallet. Interesting ID. You have got here. He pulls out her military ID studies. It snorts. Marine Corps, General 4 stars. He tosses it on the table. Nice, fake, adding impersonating military personnel to your charges, Reynolds. Watches him carefully. That identification is authentic, right? Mitchell laughs. And I am the Secretary of Defense. His phone buzzes. He checks the screen, nods slightly. Our concerned citizen is here, Mitchell says, moving to the door. Someone wants to meet the latest checkpoint troublemaker. Reynolds's photographic memory catalogues, every procedural violation, every failed, Miranda compliance, every civil rights infringement. Mitchell leaves through the thin walls. Reynolds hears a new voice, authoritative, impatient. Another one from that neighborhood. The voice must belong to Councilman Robert Hayes. Yes, sir, Mitchell responds. Gave us the usual constitutional speech. Had a fake military ID, too. Military. Hayes sounds interested. What branch Marines claims to be a general? Mitchell's laugh carries through the wall. Get what you need. And process her, Hayes says. Make an example. These checkpoint resistors are undermining the whole program. Reynolds notices the one-way glass, feels Hayes watching from the other side. The door opens again. Mitchell returns with Officer Ryan. Clark, let us try again. Mitchell slaps a form on the table. Sign this confession to obstruction. Take a misdemeanor charge and you will be out by morning. Reynolds studies the document without touching it. I will need my attorney present before signing anything. Clark steps forward. Captain asked you nicely, and I respectfully declined. Reynolds replies. Mitchell nods to Clark, who moves behind Reynolds's chair. His presence meant to intimidate you. People from Oak Ridge Heights think you are special. Mitchell says, think the rules do not apply, but Councilman Robert Hayes's checkpoint program has cut crime in Riverview by 35% by targeting specific neighborhoods. Reynolds asks. Mitchell's expression hardens. By enforcing the law, where it needs enforcing. Selective enforcement is not legal enforcement. Reynolds says. Clark places heavy hands on her shoulders. You should listen to the captain. Reynolds does not react to the physical intimidation. I believe this interview is over until my counsel arrives. Mitchell collects her belongings intentionally, dropping her military ID on the floor. He steps on it as he walks around the table. This little military costume does not impress me, he sneers, picking up the ID. Though I admire the attention to detail. 4 stars, ambitious, fake. He tosses the ID back on the table. Clark increases pressure on Reynolds' shoulders. We have got all night, Mitchell says. Plenty of time for you to reconsider that signature. A sharp knock interrupts. The door opens immediately. Detective Daniel Carter stands in the doorway. His expression shifts from professional to confused as he takes in the scene. Captain Carter says, carefully. A moment outside, Mitchell hesitates, then nods to Clark. Watch her. The door closes behind them through the wall. Reynolds hears urgent whispers. The conversation grows heated. Someone knocks urgently on the interrogation room door. The door opens. Detective Carter enters, followed by a visibly agitated Captain Mitchell Carter, mid-30s, with observant eyes, carries himself differently than the other officers. His badge hangs from a chain around his neck. His suit, while department issue, fits properly. Officer Ryan Clark, you are needed at the front desk, Carter says. Clark looks to Mitchell, who nods reluctantly. Clark leaves, closing the door firmly behind him. Carter approaches the table he picks up, Reynolds' military ID examining it closely. Captain, this ID has proper security features, Carter says. The holographic seal, microprinting UV watermarks, all authentic military issue. Mitchell scoffs. It is a good fake. No, sir. Carter places the ID gently on the table. I served before joining the department. This is genuine. Mitchell's confidence wavers momentarily, so she stole a military ID. Add it to the charges. Reynolds watches the dynamic between them. Carter represents something rare, integrity within a corrupted system. Ma'am, Carter addresses Reynolds directly. May I ask your name and rank, General? Margaret Reynolds. United States Marine Corps. Carter straightens instinctively. Military bearing does not fade with time. And what brings you to Riverview? General Carter asks, before Reynolds can answer. Mitchell interrupts Detective. She is being processed for obstruction and checkpoint evasion. Her occupation is irrelevant. Sir, if she is active military, we have jurisdictional protocols to follow. Carter counters. Mitchell steps closer to Carter. I am handling this case. Captain, department policy requires verification of military credentials. Carter persists. Section 14 of our procedural manual specifically states, I know the manual. Mitchell snaps, then, you know, we are already in violation of proper procedure. Carter does not back down. No attorney present, despite request, continued questioning after rights. Invocation extended detention without processing. Mitchell's jaw tightens. Detective, remember your place. My place is ensuring department procedures are followed. Carter replies evenly. He turns back to Reynolds' ID examining the rank insignia. His eyes widen, sir. Carter whispers, "These are 4 stars." So 4 stars is the highest rank in the Marine Corps. Carter looks at Reynolds with new understanding. There are only a handful in the entire military. Mitchell's confidence cracks further. It is still a fake. The interrogation room door swings open. Councilman Robert Hayes enters without knocking his tailored suit and signet ring. "Project Authority and Wealth Captain, what is the delay?" Hayes demands. "I thought this was routine processing." His eyes fall on Reynolds. He assesses her with practiced political calculation. "Councilman Hayes," Carter says, "we have a situation. This woman appears to be a high-ranking military officer." Hayes scoffs, based on what military identification consistent with a Marine Corps general. Carter explains, "We need to verify through proper channels before proceeding." "Detective, is it not?" Hayes checks Carter's nameplate. "Your concern for procedure is noted. Now let the captain handle this." Carter stands his ground, "Sir, with respect. If we have detained a military general improperly, the department faces serious repercussions if Hayes emphasizes a remarkably big. If he turns to Mitchell, Captain, handle the paperwork and process her. Detective Carter, you are needed elsewhere." "Sir," Carter protests, "standard protocol requires. Standard protocol is what I say it is." Hayes interrupts the checkpoint. "Program operates under special city ordinance." "My ordinance," Reynolds watches Carter carefully. She sees the moment his professional ethics confront political reality. Councilman Carter says carefully, "May I at least verify her identity through military channels?" "A simple phone call." Hayes studies Carter. "You are new to Riverview. Are you detective transferred 6 months ago, sir? Then let me explain how things work here." Hayes steps closer. "The checkpoint program is essential to Riverview safety and property values. Occasional complaints are expected. They are handled quietly and quickly by violating rights." Carter asks. Hayes's smile turns cold by maintaining order. "Do not overthink your role, detective." The phone on the wall suddenly rings. All 3 turn toward it. Mitchell answers. "Captain." "Mitchell." He listens, frowning. What kind of call? His expression shifts from annoyance to confusion, from where Mitchell's face pales slightly. He hangs up. "What is it?" Hayes demands. "Front desk has received calls asking about a general." "Reynolds," Mitchell says slowly. "From whom?" Hayes asks. Mitchell swallows the Pentagon. The room falls silent. Hayes and Mitchell exchange glances. Probably her friends playing games. Hayes dismisses Captain. "Finish processing," and Sir Mitchell interrupts. They mentioned her by name and rank. They knew she was here. Hayes turns to Reynolds, reassessing Carter's eyes. "Widen at the 4 stars on her ID card, sir. Do you realize who we have arrested?" Hayes silences him with a gesture. "Captain, verify this properly." Now, Mitchell exits quickly. Hayes studies Reynolds with new caution. "If you are military." Hayes says, "You should understand the importance of security checkpoints. I understand constitutional rights." Reynolds replies, "And selective enforcement." Hayes's political smile returns. "General, if that is what you are, surely we can resolve this misunderstanding amicably." The phone rings again. Mitchell answers from outside. His voice carries through the door. "Yes, sir. Yes, she is here." "No, sir, I understand." Sir Hayes watches the door with growing concern. Mitchell returns visibly shaken. "That was Colonel Thomas Avery from the Pentagon Military Police. They have confirmed her identity." "Excellent." Hayes recovers quickly, then release the general immediately, with our apologies for the misunderstanding. There is more, Mitchell says quietly. They are sending representatives here now. Hayes's political mask slips. What representatives? A military investigation unit. Mitchell says they specifically mentioned your checkpoint program. Sir. Hayes turns to Reynolds, understanding dawn in his eyes. This was not a coincidence. He realizes your presence at the checkpoint. Reynolds meets his gaze steadily. The station's front desk phone begins to ring. The persistent ringing echoes through the station. Multiple lines, now phones lighting up across desks. Hayes moves to the interrogation room door, closing it firmly. His political composure cracks further. What exactly is happening here, he demands. Reynolds remains silent. Her mission does not require explanation. Mitchell's radio crackles. Captain, we have multiple incoming calls. Pentagon DOJ's governor's office handle it. Hayes snaps. Sir. Mitchell responds. They are specifically asking about General Reynolds. Carter watches this exchange with growing awareness. He moves closer to Reynolds. Would you like those handcuffs removed, General? He asks quietly. Hayes glares at him. Detective, step back, sir. She has been confirmed as a military general. Carter argues. Continuing to detain her is my decision. Hayes interrupts. He points at Reynolds. Whatever game you are playing, the game ends now. Reynolds finally speaks. This is not a game. Councilman, it is an investigation. Investigation. Hayes laughs, but uncertainty edges his voice into what systematic civil rights violations through discriminatory checkpoint practices. Reynolds states targeting minority neighborhoods, violating Fourth Amendment protections, implementing quotas based on race and district. Hayes's face hardens. Ridiculous accusations. Documented accusations. Reynolds corrects Mitchell's radio. Crackles again, Captain military vehicles approaching the station. Hayes's political calculation visibly shifts to self-preservation. He turns to Mitchell, release her. Now claim miscommunication, blame the officers who made the arrest. Mitchell hesitates. Sir Clark followed your checkpoint protocols exactly. Then blame the protocols. Hayes hisses, just contain this. Carter steps forward, removing a small key from his pocket. He unlocks Reynolds's handcuffs. My apologies, General, he says formally. Hayes watches this with growing alarm. Detective, prepare the necessary paperwork for the General's immediate release. Carter nods but makes no move to leave now. Detective Hayes insists. In a moment, Sir Carter turns to Reynolds. General, may I ask what happens next? Reynolds rubs her wrists where the cuffs bit into her skin. Justice happens next. Detective Carter. Hayes laughs nervously. A simple misunderstanding does not require such dramatics. 6 months of documented civil rights violations is not a misunderstanding. Reynolds replies. Carter looks between them. 6 months. Reynolds nods. The Pentagon has been monitoring Riverview's checkpoint program since its implementation. Gathering evidence, building a case, she checks her watch, and now that case is complete. Mitchell's radio crackles once more. Captain, 3 black SUVs have entered the parking lot. Military personnel disembarking. Hayes moves to the door. I need to make some calls. Your calls will not help. Councilman Reynolds says this investigation has federal oversight. Hayes's hand freezes on the doorknob. The political mask shatters completely. Carter steps closer to Reynolds. He discreetly slides a USB drive across the table. Internal Affairs has been looking into the checkpoint program, he whispers, but we kept hitting roadblocks. Administrative obstruction evidence of direct interference, Reynolds asks quietly. Carter nods. Everything I could gather. Checkpoint locations, arrest demographics, internal communications. It is time, General, he whispers. The interrogation room door swings open. A military officer in full dress uniform enters, followed by 2 MPs. The Silver Eagle insignia identifies him as Colonel Thomas. Colonel Avery surveys the room, his gaze stopping on Reynolds. General. Reynolds, he salutes crisply. Colonel Reynolds returns the salute. Thank you for the prompt response. Of course, ma'am. Avery turns to the others. I am Colonel Thomas. Avery, Pentagon, Investigative Services. These are my associates. Hayes steps forward. Political smile reinstated Councilman Robert Hayes, Riverview City Council. This has been an unfortunate misunderstanding. Sir, Avery interrupts. Please remain in the station. My team will have questions for you shortly. Hayes's smile falters. Questions? I assure you I had no knowledge of the General's improper detention. Noted Avery says, without inflection. He turns to Mitchell. Captain, secure this room for the General's use. We will need your main conference room for our team. Mitchell hesitates. Colonel, this is a police station. You do not have jurisdiction. I have direct authorization from the Secretary of Defense. Avery cuts him off. Your cooperation is not optional. The station fills with activity. Military personnel set up equipment in the conference room. Computer specialists access the station's systems. Evidence collection team, secure records. Hayes watches with growing alarm. This response seems excessive for a simple detention issue. Reynolds stands, straightening her civilian clothes. This is not about my detention, Councilman. It is about what my detention represents. She turns to Colonel Avery. Status report teams deployed as ordered. General evidence. Preservation protocols in effect. Pentagon liaison. Briefing the governor. Now, Hayes attempts to leave 2 MPs politely but firmly direct him back. This is outrageous, he protests. I have rights. Yes, Reynolds agrees. Everyone does. That is precisely the point. Reynolds and Avery move to the conference room, now transformed into a command center. Digital displays show checkpoint locations throughout Riverview, all strategically positioned between Oak Ridge Heights and wealthy neighborhoods. Carter follows, carrying case files. General, I have brought the internal documentation you requested. Thank you. Detective Reynolds says your assistance is invaluable. Hayes and Mitchell are escorted in, directed to seats away from each other. Clark joins them. Confusion evident on his face. Reynolds stands at the head of the table. The room falls silent. Gentlemen, she begins, 6 months ago, the Pentagon received multiple complaints about a police checkpoint program targeting minority neighborhoods in Riverview. Initial review suggested Fourth Amendment violations. Further investigation revealed something more disturbing. She activates the main display. A map appears, showing checkpoint arrest. Statistics red dots cluster exclusively in minority neighborhoods. Selective enforcement. Reynolds continues checkpoint. Stops resulting in searches, 90%. Minority drivers arrests from those stops, 92% minority citizens. Mitchell shifts uncomfortably. Crime statistics justify deployment. Traffic violations occur at equal rates across demographics. Reynolds interrupts yet. Your checkpoint program produced these results. She changes. The display. Internal police emails appear. Captain Mitchell, this is your message to officers. Dated March 12th. Focus on vehicles from Oak Ridge Heights. Higher yield for arrests. Mitchell pales. That is taken out of context. Context is provided by your arrest quotas. Reynolds replies, displaying another document specifically targeting Oak Ridge Heights residents. Hayes interrupts, General. These operational details were handled by the police department. As councilman, I merely approved the program concept. Reynolds turns to him. Is that so? She nods to Colonel Avery, who displays a new document. Hayes's signature appears at the bottom of detailed checkpoint operating procedures. This directive specifies targeting specific neighborhoods. Reynolds notes your signature authorizes racial profiling. Councilman Hayes's political facade cracks completely. This is a witch hunt. This is accountability, Reynolds corrects. She turns to Carter. Detective, please share what you found during your internal investigation. Carter steps forward. 6 months ago, I noticed troubling patterns in checkpoint arrests when I raised concerns through proper channels. I was reassigned. I continued documenting discrepancies. He opens his file. Checkpoint officers were instructed to use different standards based on driver's race, and residents' Oak Ridge Heights vehicles received heightened scrutiny, regardless of driving behavior. Mitchell interrupts, "That is not your body. Cam footage contradicts you, Captain." Reynolds says she plays a video. Mitchell appears instructing officers before a checkpoint deployment. "Remember, Oak Ridge cars get the full treatment. Make the stop stick." Hayes stands abruptly. "I need to contact my attorney. You will have that opportunity," Reynolds assures him after we complete this interview. She slides a folder across the table. "These are just from the last 6 months. Captain Mitchell's face drains of color as he opens the file. The investigation continues into the night. Military personnel process evidence, technical teams analyze department servers, legal advisors document violations in a quiet corner of the conference room. Reynolds finds Carter reviewing files. "Detective," she says, joining him, "your assistance has been crucial." Carter looks up, exhaustion etched on his face. "I should have done more sooner. You did what you could within a corrupt system." Reynolds says that takes courage. Carter closes the file. "When I transferred to Riverview, I had no idea the checkpoint program was already established, presented as innovative community policing. When did you realize the truth?" Reynolds asks Carter, hesitates, pain flashing across his features. 3 months ago, he finally says, "My brother came to visit. He was stopped at a checkpoint, detained for hours. No charges, just intimidation. He stares at his hands, stares at his... He is a pediatric surgeon, drives a nice car, but they only saw a black man in the wrong neighborhood." Reynolds finishes. Carter nods. "I filed complaints, used proper channels, evidence disappeared, witnesses changed statements. The system protected itself. That is why I am here." Reynolds says sometimes the system needs external pressure to change. "Why you specifically?" Carter asks, "Why did the Pentagon send a 4-star general for a local police investigation? Because some issues transcend jurisdiction." Reynolds explains, "Civil rights violations impact national security, eroded public trust, undermine the Constitution. We are all sworn to protect." Carter absorbs this. What happens to the officers? To Hayes, justice. Reynolds says simply, "Due process, the same rights they denied others. And the people they wrongfully arrested, the lives they damaged. Part of the remedy includes case reviews, expungements, compensation." Reynolds meets his eyes. "Your brother's case will be among them." Carter wipes his eyes quickly. "This is not just about today." "Is it, General?" "No," she answers. "It is about every day. Before this and every day that comes after." Carter straightens, professional composure, returning. "What's our next step?" "Evidence compilation." Reynolds says, "Your testimony will be crucial before the federal grand jury." "I am ready," Carter affirms. For the first time since her arrest. Reynolds smiles. "I know dawn breaks over Riverview Police Station. The parking lot fills with government vehicles. FBI agents join. Military investigators." After we complete this interview, she slides a folder across the table. "These are just from the last 6 months." Captain Mitchell's face drains of color as he opens the file. The investigation continues into the night. Military personnel process evidence. Technical teams analyze department servers, legal advisors, document violations in a quiet corner of the conference room. Reynolds finds Carter reviewing files. "Detective," she says, "joining him, your assistance has been crucial." Carter looks up. Exhaustion etched on his face. "I should have done more sooner. You did what you could within a corrupt system." Reynolds says that takes courage. Carter closes the file. "When I transferred to Riverview, I had no idea the checkpoint program was already established, presented as innovative community policing. When did you realize the truth?" Reynolds asks Carter, hesitates. Pain flashing across his features. 3 months ago, he finally says. "My brother came to visit. He was stopped at a checkpoint, detained for hours. No charges, just intimidation." He stares at his hands, stares at his father. He is a pediatric surgeon, drives a nice car, but they only saw a black man in the wrong neighborhood. Reynolds finishes. Carter nods. "I filed complaints, used proper channels, evidence, disappeared, witnesses changed statements. The system protected itself. That is why I am here." Reynolds says sometimes the system needs external pressure to change. "Why you specifically?" Carter asks, "Why did the Pentagon send a 4-star general for a local police investigation? Because some issues transcend jurisdiction." Reynolds explains civil rights violations impact national security, eroded public trust, undermine the Constitution. "We are all sworn to protect." Carter absorbs this. What happens to the officers? To Hayes, justice. Reynolds says simply, "Due process, the same rights they denied others. And the people they wrongfully arrested. The lives they damaged. Part of the remedy includes case reviews, expungements, compensation." Reynolds meets his eyes. "Your brother's case will be among them." Carter wipes his eyes quickly. "This is not just about today, is it, General?" "No," she answers. "It is about every day before this, and every day that comes after." Carter straightens. Professional composure, returning. "What's our next step?" "Evidence compilation." Reynolds says, "Your testimony will be crucial before the federal grand jury." "I am ready." Carter affirms for the first time since her arrest. Reynolds smiles. "I know dawn breaks over Riverview Police Station. The parking lot fills with government vehicles. FBI agents join military investigators. Justice Department attorneys arrive with subpoenas inside the conference room. The atmosphere shifts from investigation to prosecution. Evidence boards cover the walls. Computer screens display data analysis. Legal teams prepare documents. Captain Mitchell sits alone, separated from his officers. Hayes's attorney arrived hours ago, whispering urgent advice ignored by his client, Colonel. Thomas Avery enters with a new team general. The Secretary of Defense sends his regards. The investigation has been elevated to Joint Task Force status. Reynolds nods. "Excellent. Let us proceed with the full briefing." The room fills with senior officials, military. Federal State. The governor's representative sits near the Attorney General's deputy. Reynolds takes position at the head of the table. The room falls silent. "Ladies and gentlemen." She begins what started as a civil rights monitoring operation has revealed systematic constitutional violations and abuse of power. Today, I present comprehensive evidence in 3 categories: visual documentation, audio recordings, and written records. She activates the main display. First, visual evidence dash cam footage appears. A vehicle from Oak Ridge Heights stopped at a checkpoint. The driver professional. Polite is ordered from the car without cause. Search conducted without consent. When he questions the legality, he is arrested for obstruction. This pattern repeats across hundreds of documented stops. Reynolds explains. She shows split-screen footage. White drivers pass through checkpoints with cursory checks. Black drivers from Oak Ridge Heights face extended detentions, searches, and frequent arrests. Checkpoint camera systems captured clear racial disparities in enforcement. Reynolds continues. White drivers were stopped at 8% frequency. Black drivers at 82%. Hayes interrupts. Selective editing can create false patterns. These are your department's unaltered recordings. Councilman Reynolds replies, complete timestamps intact. She displays a heat map of checkpoint placements. Checkpoints were exclusively positioned to intercept residents, leaving minority neighborhoods, particularly Oak Ridge Heights. Mitchell shifts uncomfortably. Strategic deployment based on traffic patterns was contradicted by your own traffic study. Reynolds interrupts, displaying the document which recommended different locations entirely. She moves to a new screen. Second category audio. Evidence. Reynolds activates an audio file. Mitchell's voice fills the room. Councilman wants more arrests from Oak Ridge Heights. Make it happen. Officer Ryan Clark responds, even without cause. Mitchell find cause, broken tail light, failure to signal. Get them out of the car. You will find something. Hayes stands. That recording could be anyone. Voice pattern analysis confirms. Captain Mitchell and Officer Clark Reynolds replies. Recorded during official briefings. She plays another recording. Hayes's voice now. The checkpoint program serves two purposes. Public safety is what we tell the press. Property values is why we are really doing it. Keep the element where it belongs in Oak Ridge Heights, not in our neighborhoods. Hayes sinks back into his chair. My military raw watch recorded our entire interaction last night. Reynolds explains, including unguarded comments. When you thought I could not hear the federal officials exchange glances, the evidence mounts beyond dispute. Finally, Reynolds continues. Documentary evidence. The screen displays internal emails, text messages, and official memoranda. Mitchell to officers use checkpoint quota system as discussed. Hayes wants numbers up in Oak Ridge Heights. Demographic department statistics appear. Arrest rates by race, search rates by neighborhood, conviction outcomes by demographic. The data reveals unmistakable discriminatory patterns. Reynolds explains, checkpoint stops led to arrests for black drivers at 8 times the rate of white drivers for identical violations. She displays arrest reports side by side. Same violation, different races, different outcomes, but the most damning evidence comes from the program's origin. Reynolds says she reveals city planning documents, property developer, communications with Hayes, financial records. Councilman Hayes received substantial contributions from developers looking to revitalize Oak Ridge Heights. Reynolds explains their development strategy required displacing current residents. The documents tell the story. Checkpoint harassment designed to pressure Oak Ridge Heights residents to leave, property values driven down, developers positioned to purchase at depressed prices, civil rights violations driven by financial motivation. Reynolds concludes. Hayes's attorney whispers urgently in his ear. Hayes ignores him. This is fabricated. Hayes insists a politically motivated attack. The evidence speaks for itself. Reynolds replies, and now the final piece. She nods to Carter, who connects his USB drive to the system. Detective Carter conducted his own internal investigation. Reynolds explains, documenting checkpoint operations from within. Carter stands. I collected evidence of quotas targeting specific neighborhoods, documented systematic civil rights violations, recorded instructions to ignore constitutional protections. His files appear on screen. Officer performance reviews, tied to Oak Ridge. Heights arrest numbers, checkpoint schedules, targeting black churches, community centers, and businesses. Most critically, Carter continues, I discovered that complaints about checkpoint practices were systematically buried. He displays the evidence complaint forms marked resolved without investigation. Witness statements, altered video. Evidence deleted when residents attempted to use proper channels for redress. Carter explains the system was designed to silence them. The room falls silent as officials review the overwhelming evidence. This operation was not about my personal detention. Reynolds explains, I volunteered to test the system directly after months of intelligence gathering. My experience matched exactly what our investigation predicted. She turns to Hayes. Your checkpoint program violated the Fourth Amendment, targeted citizens by race, obstructed justice when challenged. The Justice Department official stands, we have seen enough. This evidence supports federal civil rights charges. Hayes looks around desperately. This is a misunderstanding. The program had legitimate public safety goals. The evidence contradicts that. Claim Reynolds responds. Hayes attempts one last defense. General Reynolds intentionally provoked officers. Created this situation. On Tremont, I simply drove through a public checkpoint. Reynolds replies calmly. My rights were violated because of who I am and where I live, exactly like hundreds of other citizens. She displays the final document. This is the classified Pentagon investigation authorization signed by the Secretary of Defense. Launched after multiple military personnel reported discriminatory treatment at your checkpoints. The reality of his situation finally hits Hayes. He turns to his attorney in panic. The investigation is complete. Reynolds announces, federal prosecutors will now determine specific charges. The Pentagon investigator connects the final laptop to the projector. This evidence goes back 3 years. FBI agents approach Mitchell Clark and other implicated officers. Justice Department officials surround Hayes. Robert Hayes, you are under federal investigation for civil rights violations, abuse of power, and obstruction of justice. The lead federal prosecutor announces. Hayes stands abruptly. I need to make a statement to the press. Control the narrative, he moves toward the door. Military police stand ready. Councilman Robert Hayes attempts to leave through the back door where military police wait. 1 week later, Capitol Hill. A congressional hearing room fills with observers. And officials. General Margaret Reynolds sits at the witness table in full dress uniform. 4 stars gleam on her shoulders. Medals and ribbons testify to decades of service. The committee chairperson calls the session to order. This hearing on civil rights enforcement in local policing will now begin. General Reynolds, thank you for your testimony today. Reynolds adjusts her microphone. Thank you for the opportunity to address this committee, please. Summarize the Pentagon's investigation into the Riverview Checkpoint program, the chairperson requests. 6 months ago, the Department of Defense received multiple complaints from military personnel subjected to discriminatory treatment at police checkpoints in Riverview. Reynolds begins initial investigation, revealed a pattern of constitutional violations specifically targeting minority neighborhoods. She presents the evidence methodically, the discriminatory checkpoint placements, the racial disparities in enforcement, the financial motivations behind the program. Our investigation confirms systematic Fourth Amendment violations. Reynolds continues, citizens were detained, searched, and arrested without probable cause. When they attempted to assert their rights, they faced increased charges. A committee member interrupts. Why did this require Pentagon involvement? Rather than Justice Department, the initial complaints came from military personnel. Reynolds explains, however, we quickly discovered that civilians faced identical treatment. We coordinated with Justice Department officials to ensure comprehensive investigation. Reynolds displays the checkpoint map. The program strategically isolated the predominantly black community of Oak Ridge Heights. Residents faced constant harassment when traveling to work, school, or shopping. The evidence unfolds on screen. Arrest statistics by race, search rates by neighborhood. Conviction patterns showing clear discrimination. Most concerning, Reynolds continues, was that the program operated with explicit city approval. Councilman Hayes personally directed police to target specific demographics. Another committee member leans forward and the current status of those involved. Councilman Hayes faces federal civil rights charges. Reynolds reports, Captain Mitchell and 5 officers have been indicted. The checkpoint program has been permanently terminated. She pauses, then adds, most importantly, all convictions stemming from unconstitutional checkpoints are under review for expungement. The chairperson nods. General, your decision to personally test the checkpoint system was unconventional. What motivated this approach? Sometimes systems only reveal their true nature through direct experience. Reynolds explains as a black woman and a military officer. I was uniquely positioned to document the disparity between how citizens should be treated and how they were actually treated. A supportive committee member speaks. I would like to recognize Detective Daniel Carter, whose internal investigation provided crucial evidence. Detective, please stand. Carter rises from the audience. The room applauds his courage. Detective Carter risked his career to document these violations. Reynolds acknowledges his ethical commitment represents the best of law enforcement. The chairperson turns serious. What changes do you recommend to prevent similar abuses nationwide? First, independent oversight of checkpoint operations. Reynolds suggests second, mandatory data collection on stops. By demographic, third, clear consequences for departments showing discriminatory patterns. She looks directly at the committee. Most importantly, we must recognize that constitutional rights are not optional. They do not depend on race, neighborhood, or economic status. The hearing continues with questions and testimony. Reynolds provides detailed responses, always returning to the core principle, equal protection under law. As the session concludes, the chairperson makes an announcement based on this investigation. We are introducing legislation establishing federal standards for checkpoint operations. The Equitable Enforcement Act will require transparency, accountability, and constitutional compliance. Outside the hearing room, Reynolds meets with Carter. The committee was impressed with your evidence. She tells him the FBI has offered you a position with their Civil Rights Division. Carter smiles. I have accepted. Change sometimes requires working from the inside, and your brother Reynolds asks his record has been expunged. Carter confirms he is helping organize the class action lawsuit for other checkpoint victims. Reynolds nods approvingly. Justice works slowly, but it does work when good people insist upon it. Carter adds, 2 months later. A community center in Oak Ridge Heights, residents gather for a town hall meeting with their new police chief. Reynolds, now in civilian clothes, sits quietly in the back. She watches as Carter, no longer a detective, but a community liaison, facilitates dialogue between residents and police. The new chief announces reformed policies. Body cameras always activated. Stop data publicly available, community oversight, board with real authority after the meeting. An elderly resident approaches Reynolds. You are the general. Are you not the one who brought down those checkpoints? Reynolds smiles. I just helped expose the truth. You did more than that, the woman says. My grandson was arrested at one of those checkpoints, lost his scholarship because of it, now his records cleared, and he is back in college. I am glad to hear that Reynolds responds. One thing I do not understand. The woman continues, you are a general, you could have used your rank from the beginning. Why go through the arrest because most people cannot use rank or privilege to protect their rights? Reynolds explains the system should work equally for everyone, not just those with status. The woman nods thoughtfully. My grandson wants to be a lawyer. Now says, somebody needs to know the law to protect the community. He is right. Reynolds agrees. Knowing your rights is the first step to defending them outside. Carter waits to drive Reynolds to the airport, returning to the Pentagon. He asks, yes? Reynolds confirms. But our civil rights oversight will not end with Riverview. This case established a template for identifying similar patterns. Nationwide, the checkpoint is gone, Carter observes as they drive past its former location, but the work continues. Reynolds looks out at the community families walking freely, residents no longer afraid of arbitrary enforcement. This is what security actually looks like. She says not checkpoints and harassment, just people living their lives with dignity and equal protection under the law. The committee chairman gavels the session closed. This hearing is concluded, but our work has just begun. General Margaret Reynolds steps into the sunlight outside the Capitol building. 6 months later, Pentagon conference room, General Reynolds stands before a wall of monitors displaying checkpoint data from cities nationwide. Colonel Thomas Avery enters with fresh reports. Implementation of the new oversight protocols is proceeding as scheduled. General 17 departments have voluntarily reformed checkpoint practices and the resistors. Reynolds asks Justice Department has opened investigations into 9 jurisdictions, showing similar patterns to Riverview. Reynolds studies data red flags highlight familiar patterns, checkpoints concentrated around minority, neighborhoods, disparate enforcement statistics, complaint suppression. The Riverview model is proving effective. Avery notes identifying indicators of systemic discrimination. Before they become entrenched, Reynolds nods and our military personnel reports down. 63%, Avery confirms the warning system works. Service members report potential civil rights issues directly to our office. Now Reynolds's secure phone chimes a text from Carter. Hayes sentenced today. 5 years federal restitution ordered for checkpoint victims. Justice delayed, but delivered. Her assistant enters General. Your next appointment is here. A young black woman in Air Force uniform enters. Lieutenant Jasmine Williams recently detained at a checkpoint outside Maxwell Air Force Base. Lieutenant Reynolds greets her. Thank you for reporting your experience. General Williams salutes crisply. I was not sure if it warranted attention until I heard about your Riverview operation. Every data point matters, Reynolds assures her. Your report matches others from that jurisdiction? Williams straightens. What happens now, ma'am? Now Reynolds explains. We follow the evidence document. The pattern ensures constitutional protections apply equally to everyone. She moves to the window, looking out at the Pentagon courtyard. Where service members from all backgrounds serve a common mission, the uniform does not protect us from discrimination. Reynolds tells Williams, but it does give us the responsibility to uphold the Constitution for ourselves and for every citizen. Williams nods in understanding. That's why I reported it. Not just for me, exactly. Reynolds agrees. Systems only change when good people recognize injustice and take action. She returns to the data displays, to the work that continues, no checkpoints. Reynolds says, no double standards, just equal justice under law. The map of America glows on the screen before her. Each indicator represents work to be done, communities waiting for fairness, rights requiring protection. General Reynolds gets back to work.